Road trains. To most people, just the name conjures images of the outback, wide horizons, big, powerful prime movers, and great combinations of trailers hauling the stuff of life across a never-ending landscape. In this program, we'll follow a Mercedes Benz handling the rough Gulf country, delivering Christmas cheer to the station people. We'll have a brief look at the history of road trains. We'll see Mac's latest and greatest, loading cattle in the outback. Bruce Honeywell will take us on a trip collecting a road train story for a trucking magazine. We'll see Dean McBride's big Ford LTLs hauling triples between Alice Springs and Darwin. We'll travel with a smart express freight shuttle operation pulled by Freightliners in North Queensland. And we'll see the biggest road trains, 600 horsepower Western Stars pulling gold ore in the Tanami Desert. Mount Isa, mining centre and railhead. This remote city is a transport centre, a key link in freight travelling from the East Coast to the Northern Territory. And it is a distribution centre supplying small towns, communities, mines and cattle stations throughout Western Queensland and in the Gulf country right up into the Territory. Neville Hawkins owns an operation supplying fuel and freight throughout Queensland and the Northern Territory.
It's a bit different for a while.
One of his runs goes from Mount Isa west onto the Barkly Tableland, then north right up into the Gulf country. His operation supplies the lifeblood of everyday requirements to a peppering of remote cattle stations and roadhouses.
The depot on Mount Isa does carry a lot of freight with its fuel. It's the way the country is up there. It's no good running up with their perishables and not having the fuel. You might as well take the lot up, and that's the way economically to do it. And that's the reason for triples running out of the Mount Isa depot, because they can take refrigerated fuel and open trailer cargo.
It's the beginning of the wet season. Christmas is getting close. Work on the cattle stations is slowing down with the heat. And because of freight and the condition of the roads up in the Gulf, driver Mick is pulling only 2 trailers on this trip. Loading is completed and Mick hooks up the trailers. Early the next morning finds Mick well on the way, travelling west towards Camberwell and the Northern Territory border. The little town of Camberwell is waiting for the Benz. Roadhouse and butcher, general store and pub all need what Mick brings. This is the first of many strangely bred forklifts to be seen on this run. Try to angle park like this on the East Coast. The fridge is topped off with a bit of Christmas cheer for the station people. And Mick heads her out over the Georgina River. And on to the Barkly Tableland and over the Territory border. Neville Hawkins told us about how only a couple of years ago he was pulling a load of tallow from the Territory when he came by the Mount Isa operation.
At the end of the last year's season, actually the final load out of the Territory for the season, I pulled into the Ampol depot to fuel up as per usual. With the Roadtrain, 2 trailers of tallow on going to Townsville. And the depot manager said, "You don't want to buy a fuel depot, do you?" And I nearly fell over. And I said, "Oh, you're not fitting?" He said, "Yeah." And that's how it all started.
Mick services Avon Downs and Barclay Homestead. And it's time to leave the Barclay Highway and head north. One by one drops are made at remote cattle stations. And late afternoon brings thunderheads building overhead. Brunette Downs is more like a town than a cattle station. The station people are hoping the clouds will bring the rain the country needs. The clouds keep building. Neville Hawkins is impressed with the run he's getting out of the Benzes. On B-double work, he has trucks delivered with an unconditional 2-year warranty that cost neither himself nor Mercedes Benz a cent in warranty claims. He reckons the 2648 on the Golf Run is getting the hardest time of all his trucks, and at the time we spoke to Neville, no problems had shown up. Coming from an American truck background, what does he reckon about the 2648?
The 2648, well, that's a big truck, man. I mean, you only got to take one look at it. Yeah. It's an impressive truck to look at.
That night, Mick camps at Walhallow Station and delivers this big station's loading in the morning. The storms had stayed to the northeast overnight. The next leg is the one that's worrying Mick, the pull east to Kayana Station. And his worries were well founded. The storm had passed over the Kayana Road. Any mistake here could mean disaster. But Mick and the Big Benz stick to the high ground. And soon is unloading at Kayana. Heading back out from Kayana, Mick needs to run in a big circle to get up through the gears to gain enough momentum to cross a flowing creek. With power on, the prime mover surges through the creek, and before the wheels can lose traction on the now wet surface, the weight of the trailers are pushing it up onto higher ground. After the Kayana run, Mick can relax a little. He can look forward to a cool beer at Heartbreak Hotel at Cape Crawford. From here, it's only a short step down the bitumen to Borroloola and the last drop of the run. But tomorrow is time enough for that. Today, modern, efficient trucks and trailers meet the still challenging conditions of outback Australia. Road trains tie the communities of northern Australia together. The railways have remained a mirage in much of outback Australia. Coastal shipping has been reduced to a tiny percentage of what it once was. Road trains are a daughter of necessity. The enterprising teamsters of last century realised that the power unit, usually 16 well-muscled draft horses, necessary to cross the Great Divide and haul the towering load of wool bales to the east coast, was not necessary to pull the same load across the flat outback. Teamsters were no different from today's road transport operators. They were unlikely to cop a cut in power, Instead, they doubled the load by hooking 2 loaded wagons together. Some 50 years later, an isolated importation became the next milestone in road train history. This was the government road train. The outfit, an AEC prime mover rigid truck with 2 trailers, was unloaded in Adelaide in the mid-1930s. The 8-wheel drive government road train toiled loyally for many years, supplying outlying communities from Alice Springs. Transport was integral to the post-war development, and local operators bought the powerful tank transporters Diamond T's, Federals, NR Max. Also available in vast numbers were the Army trailers, 2-axle, 26-footers. By 1950, Bulldogs trucks pulling 8 trailers were a common sight between Alice Springs and Tennant Creek. As the old Army trucks wore out, a wave of British trucks, mostly Fodens and some Leylands, took over the task. By the end of the 50s came the American invasion that is still with us today. The B-model Mack brought power and speed that was unheard of before. Every outback operator has brought some little idea to the development of the road train. Today's road train is the result of 3 generations of transport innovators. Just what is today's road train? There are 2 basic types allowed in different parts of Australia. The triple is used in far western Queensland, in the Northern Territory, and the top half of Western Australia. It consists of a bogie drive prime mover powered normally by an engine of 500 horsepower or better and pulls 3 trailers. Each unit sits on 62 tyres and has a legal gross weight, fully loaded, of 115 tonnes. The triple has a length limit of 50 metres. The double configuration is everywhere triples are allowed, plus on specified routes throughout Queensland, except on the coastal strip, in most of Western Australia, in most of South Australia, and in far western New South Wales. The double is similar to the triple, except the configuration is limited to 2 trailers and an all-up loaded weight of 85 tonnes. Mack trucks led the US revolution of road train operation in the outback. Particularly the B models set new standards for sheer guts and determination in opening up the big country beyond the bitumen. The Macks brought efficient livestock transport over long distances, and their introduction sounded the death knell for the horseback drover. The Bulldog has come a long way since the days of the B model. This was the first of the new shape road train spec prime movers, the CLRs, to come off the assembly line. Gleaming in birth, we wondered what this particular truck was doing, how it was handling life. Is it as tough as the long line of Bulldogs from which it's descended? 4,000 kilometres from its birthplace, we found the CLR. And at daylight, it was loading time at Scott Creek Station, 100 kilometres west of Katherine in the Northern Territory. The CLR is running in the fleet of road trains of Australia, a direct descendant of the old Buntine fleet of livestock hauliers. Like the truck itself, the company too has evolved. From Noel Buntine, it went to the Dick David Group, who owned it for more than half a decade. Today, it is still territory owned, and many of the employees go back to the days of Noel Buntine. The traditional time to load cattle is daylight. And the Scott Creek stockmen have the mob drafted and ready to load. The walk-through loading setup on the Hallmark trailers make double-deck loading fast and simple. With this system, cattle are loaded through one trailer and up one ramp. Through trailer crossovers, the 3 trailers are loaded through one point. In the early morning, the cattle rattle into the crates. It is all done with a minimum of fuss. Alex is the driver of the CLR. His opinion on how this newest of the bulldog breed is going is terse and to the point. Yes, he reckons, there's been a few structural problems, but you'd expect that from a new model. But he also reckons it's the most comfortable truck in the fleet. He's certainly happy about the trip times. And as far as Alex is concerned, this new Mac is his home, and he's more than happy for things to stay that way. This CLR has come a long way since rolling off the Brisbane assembly line. It's made its home in the Northern Territory, and it's upholding all the strong traditions set by its ancestors. Bruce Honeywell is a writer who's specialised in the transport industry. When he was the editor of trucking magazines, he was often asked by readers what it was like doing the Roadtrain stories that often featured in the mags. Some time ago, he took the home movie camera along on one of these trips. It was a big sheep lift by Joe Gleason's operation. His partner, Tina Plum, photographed this story. The couple was capably assisted by Juliet. The trucks rumbled up to the loading ramp. The clang of the gates and screeching grind of ramps being lowered into position were a preface to the business of loading. Sheep, and more sheep waited patiently in the yards. 4,600 sheep about to climb into 3 road trains and set out on a droving trip of 500 kilometres over some of the roughest outback roads in northern Australia. We were on Terrick Station, and manager Bob Beattie kept a close eye on the proceedings, ensuring none of his stockmen got too enthusiastic. These sheep, recently shed of their woolly coats in the shearing shed, were well handled and loaded smoothly. As the morning sun lifted over flat horizons, deck after deck filled. The contract to shift the sheep was Joe Gleason's. Joe comes from Blackall and runs a combined livestock and general freight haulage business. Joe was there, in amongst the sheep, urging and whistling them on. 2 of his trucks, both Western Stars, and each hooked up to 3 trailers, loaded the sheep. A cab over Kenworth, owned by subby Roger Rutherford, loaded another 2 trailers. The Gleason family has a long pedigree in transport. Joe Gleason's ancestors were teamsters in the Blackall area, carting wool towering high on flatbed wagons to the railhead at Charleville. Joe Gleason himself has been shifting livestock for a long time. He was a drover and shifted many mobs on horseback during the 60s. The 70s saw Joe move with the times when he and wife Dixie bought their first truck. In 2.5 hours, the sheep were on the trucks and settled. The 3 trucks churned dust, leaving the sweet Mitchell Grass Downs and rumbling over Mulga and Brigalow ridges. It's hard, hungry country now. The dust clouds strung skyward, mixing with lean dust devils. Kitehawks soared above the dust. The CB crackled. "We're at the jump up now," said Dave DeHennon, driving the leading Western Star. The 3 trucks pulled up. Drivers discussed the climb up the Ada Vale jump up. Dave said he normally ran 1 trailer at a time, while Roger reckoned they should be able to pull 2 trailers. He was confident with the 100 extra horses his big K-Series Cummins gave him over the cats in the Western Stars. The 2 Gleason trucks dropped their 3rd trailers. Dave kept his rear dolly attached, while Scott Joyce left his 3rd trailer intact. We waited on the jump up to take photographs. We watched Dave approaching across the brown landscape, the great column of dust pointing to his position. It was a silent landscape except for the wind and the whistle of a hawk. The truck, grossing around 100 tonnes, hit the bottom of the jump-up. We could hear it now, bellowing at each gear change. Dave was going back through the gears quickly. At each change, a puff of black smoke exploded out of the exhaust stack to mingle with the brown of the dust cloud. The truck slowed as it bit into the pull. The power of the truck fought the pull of gravity made worse by the slippery rubble of the road surface. Almost still now, the truck roared, fighting for traction. Slowly it pulled over the first lip of the climb and settled to a steady pull, slowly crawling up the jump-up. Made it. It's Roger's turn in the green Kenworth. He comes at the jump-up faster than the Western Star, making use of every bit of the truck's extra power. A different sound to the Cat. The Cummins bellows as it charges at the climb. Straight up over the lip and into the steady climb, the job was comparatively easy for the bigger engine. Scott ran the jump up with the confidence that two had made it, believing he shouldn't have too much trouble. He didn't. The Western Star shutted up the steep pitch, then crawled the length of the jump up. Dave dropped his trailers, and he and Scott went back down the jump up bobtail. They hooked up the 2/3 trailers and again faced the jump up. The worry now was that the surface of the road was starting to break up from the effort of the three trucks. At the top of the jump up, it was sorting out time. A flat tyre to change, splitting the 2/3 trailers, rehooking into triple combinations. Then the billy was boiled, and we had lunch of mutton sandwiches washed down with hot black tea. Well, what else would you have out here in sheep country? Recent rains left water across the road in several places. Not to keep to the main track would mean disaster. The trucks lined up their trailers and entered the water with power on, keeping the trailers straight and allowing the momentum of the trailers to push the prime movers through to the dry road where traction was once again picked up. No problems, except for our intrepid photographer who nearly became bogged. The afternoon closed in with cloud cover coming from cyclones hovering off the Queensland coast. The Terrick sheep rode well. The trucks pulled up just before the bitumen outside Quilpie. A couple of flat tyres to fix and the weather to discuss. And the convoy pulled onto the smooth blacktop to face the night. The sheep would reach their destination about midnight. Alice Springs is a desert town in the very heart of Australia. The town's main industry is transport. Alice Springs is the railhead, the end of the line for the northbound railway. The great trains of the Australian National Line rumble into town, with freight for the entire north of Australia, dust-free freight for the capital of the Northern Territory, Darwin, a city 1,500 kilometres to the north. Alice Springs is the home of many transport operations, the majority taking part in the coordinated road-rail operation that spans the continent. A family operation that has been at the forefront of the Darwin run for more than a decade is McBride Transport. Dean McBride has been driving trucks all his life. Dean McBride runs the Alice Springs headquarters, and his two sons, Darren and Tim, drive the road trains along with a team of other drivers, all being part of the family operation. Darren is taking more of a managerial role in the operation, with 10 years' experience on the road. The McBrides have always been Ford men. Even the yard runabout is a beautifully restored Ford truck. Drivers get their units ready for the weekly haul.
And in the last 12 years, we've managed to build ourselves up to 8 Fords now. Something like, what have we got? About 28 trailers, 2 vans, and about 16 dollies.
The train leaves Adelaide on a Friday night, gets into Alice Springs on a Saturday night, and the road trains are unloading in Darwin on a Monday morning. A clean, efficient service for the people of Darwin. Freight arrives on the train in several forms of modular containerisation: complete trailers, containers and trays. The train arrives. The 2 McBride trucks and drivers, Zeke and CJ, begin shuffling their load, looking for containers and trailers. Under the railway lights, the great forklifts and gantry unload the train, and all the northbound truckies put their loads together and hook up for the big run north. Morning finds the dozen or so road trains scattered over the first quarter of the 1,500-kilometre run to Darwin. Zeke and CJ have made Walkup, a roadhouse about 400 kilometres north of Alice Springs. After what has become known as the best breakfast on the track, the trucks start to pull away. Five Ford LTLs are parked at Walkup, an indication just how this breed has secured a solid part of the road train market in the Northern Territory. The road trains head north through the town of Tennant Creek. Macs and Western Stars, Kenworths and Fords all haul the goods through the long tropical day towards Darwin. Up the track, as the Stuart Highway is known, through little towns and roadhouses, Three Ways, Renner Springs, Elliot. The road trains cross a nation, hammering north at the limit of 80 kilometres per hour, chewing away the kilometres as the sun spans the great sky of outback Australia. And there's a breakdown. Old mate in his Kenworth has a leak at the water filter. Unlike southern attitudes, all the road trains slow to lend a hand. Enough water is produced to see him right, and the heavy metal cavalcade continues northward, ever northward. Zeke's Ford is the oldest of the LTLs in the McBride fleet. 900,000 clicks of triple work before the engine was touched. Little surprised that the McBrides are pretty happy with their cats for this operation.
The first of the LTLs we purchased, the 3406B, which are the 400, which have been exceptional to us, exceptional motors, and the later three of them are the year-to-wear. The very new one is the 425, but it's a high torque one, which is our new addition. And also have been, or are still, exceptional trucks to us.
Crossing Newcastle waters, the trucks are now in the top end. The desert is left behind. The sun is getting low as the trucks roll through the little town of Mataranka, now in the never-never country of the top end, wild frontier country that even today is remote from civilization. Into the night, Zeke and CJ travel. As the sun rises again, their freight will be unloaded into the hungry supermarkets of Darwin, kept alive by the Roadtrain link between Alice Springs and the northern capital. A truck pulls out of a Townsville depot every morning. Just when it's light enough to see, it hooks up on the Roadtrain pad just west of the city. The paint job is stylish and bold. UTO trucks have turned heads across Australia over the past couple of years. Mount Isa Mines owns UTO, so it's not hard to understand there is a Roadtrain shuttle service to Mount Isa with a schedule tighter than most coach companies. By this evening, this truck will have had 3 drivers in the 850-kilometre haul to Mount Isa. It is part of a continual chain of road trains at any one time heading east and west that make up the UTO service between Townsville and Mount Isa. The Freightliner is on its way, pulling the gradual climb from the coast through the foothills of the Great Divide. The Freightliner pulls the 80-tonne load over the main range. And it is time to check the loads and the tyres. The roadhouse at Charters Towers is the first changeover point. Here, drivers change. The Townsville driver to return to Townsville to unload. The second driver to return to his base at Richmond, 360 kilometres to the west. The legs are worked out so that legal logbook hours are kept and express freight keeps rolling. Universal Transport Operations is the corporate revamp of the old Townsville Transport Services, TTS. General Manager of UTO, Kerry Noyes, set the goal that UTO would be the most visible, best spec'd and best run fleet in Australia. Through Hughenden and out over North Queensland's Western Plains. The fleet's Freightliners are powered by electronically managed Detroit Series 60s and Cummins Select engines. The trucks on the Mount Isa shuttle run 8,000 kilometres a week, 400,000 kilometres a year. In a road-train combination, this would test any truck. The drivers are happy with the Freightliners. They're comfortable and handle the task easily. And another driver swap at Richmond, well over halfway now. The UTO Roadtrain rolls through the little town of Julia Creek. As the sun lowers, the road train heads for Cloncurry. From here, the road starts to wind and climb through the Mount Isa hills. Cattle are a problem here, and it's wise to gain as many daylight clicks as possible before dark. And just after dark, the lights of Mount Isa light up the western sky. The Freightliner rolls into town, on time as usual. Gulf Transport has grown to be one of the largest and most visible fleets in Northern Australia. A specialist haulier, Gulf concentrates on bulk haulage, primarily product from mining projects across the country. Gulf headquarters are in Darwin, where Jamie Cooper, Gulf's general manager, runs the company's day-to-day business. Gulf Transport is split into two broad divisions. Gulf handles bulk transport on highway, while bulk haul handles off-road haulage, mostly on mine sites. Gulf offers clients a specialised service, often speccing equipment to fit the efficiencies of a particular job. Jim Cooper has been at the forefront of innovative road train combination design And this interest can be seen at the various sites where the company is working. Besides Darwin headquarters, Gulf has depots at Wyndham, Tennant Creek, and in the Granites Goldfield. Darwin is the administrative centre of the company. The woodcutters operation is also run from Darwin. At Woodcutters Mine, Bulk Haul handles all above-ground on-site trucking. Gulf handles the 80-kilometre highway run from Woodcutters to Darwin Wharf. At Tennant Creek, through manager Scott Radke, Gulf handles Poseidon's haul work from its various mines to the processing plant at Warrego. Copper concentrates are hauled to Mount Isa or Darwin for export. It's at the Wyndham and Granites depots that Gulf's ability to work in remote areas and the company's ability to match equipment to the task can be seen best. Wyndham is a coastal town built on the Cambridge Gulf, where 5 rivers join to flow to the Timor Sea. The town is in the far north of the Kimberley region of Western Australia. It was here that Patsy Durack landed in his quest to open the Kimberley to pastoral development, and from that day this place has been the main East Kimberley port. Gulf has run an operation here for several years, pulling the zinc and lead ore from Kajibat mine some 600 kilometres to the southwest. The treated ore is stored at Wyndham Wharf. Peter Renton is the manager at Wyndham. He oversees the operation with full servicing and backup facilities to keep wheels rolling. Gulf also handles the loading of the ore ships when they come to Wyndham. The job starts at Kajibat mine, where the ore is mined and concentrated. The trucks roll in twice a day. They're loaded and weighed off. The trucks then travel through the Kimberley landscape. While picturesque, air temperatures above the bitumen can soar to well in excess of 60 degrees Celsius. This is a challenge for any equipment, especially road trains, pulling continual all-up loads of 115 tonnes. Back at Wyndham, after the 1,200-kilometre round trip, the loads are untarped and tipped into the storage shed to await the coming of a ship. When a ship comes steaming into Cambridge Gulf, it's time for the second part of Gulf's responsibilities in getting the ore to its destination, the loading of the ship. It's a big day at Wyndham when the ship comes in. Wharfies, truckies, police, customs officers, harbours and marine people, the town's bureaucrats, all turn out as the pilot brings the big bulk carrier in. And the ship is winched to the wharf side, while the skipper applies enough power to stabilise the ship against the tidal rip. Once secured, the work starts. The Gulf trucks are loaded at the storage shed. And they begin the less than 1 kilometre short haul. The ore is tipped into a receival hopper and lifted on conveyor belts up and over to the ship, where it's dropped into the empty holds. All day and all night the road trains roll for 3 or 4 days. The holds fill. Gulf even supplies a little dozer that is used to level the load and trim the ship. And even while the ship is loading, the highway trucks are still running from Kajibat, already beginning the stockpile for the next ship. The operation at Granite's goldfield is a very different one. The Granites are almost 600 kilometres northwest of Alice Springs, right in the middle of the Tanami Desert. Gold was found here in 1900. By the 30s, mining stopped, but over the last decade, new techniques and open-cut mining have made the Granites a very viable operation. Johnny Bly runs the Gulf operation at the Granites. His responsibility is the most remote of the Gulf outfits. At the Granites, rich ore bodies were found 40 kilometres from the mine. Gulf Transport was involved with the design of the transportation system, which involved the construction of a 40-kilometre sealed haul road. Gulf put together the concept of the body plus fours. These Western Stars, powered by 600 horsepower K-Series Cummins, continually pull gross weights approaching 200 tonnes, safely and efficiently. The trucks work in two 12-hour shifts. The ore rolls to the processing mill around the clock. The ore is mined by open cut and stacked by the mining company. Gulf has its own loaders on site. The Gulf drivers load their own trucks, a big job with 5 bodies to load per truck with the body plus fours. All equipment, trucks, trailers, loaders, everything is serviced by the Gulf crew. Once loaded, the trucks make the run back to the processing mill. Gulf Transport is responsible for the maintenance of this sealed road. These trucks would have to rate as the biggest road trains using conventional running gear operating in the world today. Back at the unloading pad, the driver unloads by playing his hydraulics like a piano. The side tippers dump the load in neat rows so that the mine's loader operator can easily stack the material ready for treatment. And this is the essence of what Gulf is about: handling the complete operation independently in remote areas. This is, after all, what all road train operations have been about. Men and women of independent spirit, facing the needs of a country that is young, a country that needs to be developed. Road trains, the transport link that keeps outback Australia alive.